Avi Meyers, Northtown Neighborhood News Magazine, a presentation of Sonny Hirsch and myself. Dial us up on the web, ntnm.org, caps24.org for community policing. I meet a lot of great people on Facebook, and it's amazing to me how much of my business I conduct on Facebook. And it grows over time. One of the more interesting people I ran into, and I'm not sure who saw who's first, but he's a journalist. He's got a very interesting point of view. It's always intelligent. It's well thought out. I always enjoy reading him. I even read him this morning, even though I didn't have any time to read anything. And I'm talking about Glenn Reedus. How are you?
Great. How are you?
Good, and thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. It's great.
My pleasure. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background?
Oh, most of my life, my professional career has been in newspapers, as a reporter, as an editor, an online editor. I've been very fortunate in that, as a 13-year-old kid, I toured the Chicago Tribune, and that was the time of hardwood floors, manual typewriters, glue pots, copy boys, everybody smoking. And during that tour, I just thought it was the most exciting thing I'd ever seen in my life. And I say I was fortunate because I decided then I was going to be a reporter when I grew up. And that's what happened. I don't know, excuse me, how I had the good fortune not to tell anybody that that's what I was going to do, because when my dad found out when I was on my way to college, he was not happy at all. He had a very different take on what reporters did, especially the drinking part, even though I don't drink. But it all worked out. I remember coming home one
He wasn't
vacation.
totally wrong, by the way. One thing I
no, he wasn't at all. I mean, my first
One
job.
of my teachers at Columbia offered to take us on a tour at 8 in the morning of 5 bars like Ricardo's and all that, and show us Pulitzer Prize winning reporters already drinking heavily at 8 in the morning.
When my first job out of school was at a newspaper in Waterloo, Iowa, and I sat next to a guy named Ken Murphy. And, I'm 20-something years old, so as far as I can tell, Murphy is 80 and still working. And every day he'd come back after lunch, and he'd reach into the bottom drawer of his desk, and he had a fifth of whiskey, and he'd put it in his suit coat pocket, and he'd look at me, and he said, "If my wife calls, tell her I'm in the bathroom. She'll understand." But I mean, this was every day. And we had an executive editor who just used to scrub his mouth after lunch because of he drank his lunch, and we weren't supposed to recognize that in the newsroom. Yeah, but I went to school in Omaha, Nebraska, Creighton University. I got my degree in journalism. My first job out of school was in Waterloo, Iowa, at a daily newspaper there. I stayed a couple of years and really just wanted to make more money, because that $165 a week just wasn't cutting it. So I went to work at the University of Northern Iowa in the Public Information Office. And while I was there, I worked with a group in Waterloo called the African American Community Broadcasting nonprofit. And we literally built the first black FM educational radio station in the country. It went on the air, I believe it was like April or March of 1978. It's still on the air today.
Terrific.
It's now it's an NPR affiliate, but it's still on the air. When we built it, it was in the basement of a house that was used as a community center. But now, they got the building that's a block long, and everything's super fancy. From Waterloo, and I was missing the newspaper, so from Waterloo I went to Pontiac, Michigan to work as a business reporter, which was fine, and it's kind of all I ever wanted to do was cover business.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, when I was an undergrad, what we called arts and crafts instead of arts and sciences, it was sort of easy, and so I was worried. It's that Catholic upbringing. There's no punishment in this, so I was I was worried, so I started taking business courses as my electives, and it was what I thought college was supposed to be. It was very difficult, but I enjoyed it. And so I was in Pontiac as a business reporter, and after a couple of years, I got moved to City Hall, which I didn't think I would like at all. But it was, the city was moving from a commission manager form of government to an elected mayor, city council. So everything was new, everything was changing, and it was just exciting. And that kind of hooked me in the politics, because I had really forgotten about the growing up on the West Side, where, you know, back in the days of precinct captains, and people are always surprised when I talk about the 55-gallon oil drums we had for garbage cans in the alley.
Which your precinct captain supplied you if you were a good voter.
If you voted, yeah, I tell them if you know, because they used to flip them over when they started to rust on the bottom, and if you were a good voter, then, well, they ran over them too after they found out, and they'd lean them against the garage or the fence, and you'd see that. And then we had garbage collection 2 or 3 times a week then, but before the next garbage collection, you had a new can, and
Nice.
We used to laugh at the kids who didn't get a new can because we knew they didn't vote, you know. And back then, in the 60s, that was just paramount.
Yeah.
You know, you're not a Chicagoan if you don't vote.
I know, believe me, I remember the precinct captain promising my appearance, you know, a new can. But they were all, no matter how they voted, in those days, it was different.
Yeah.
It was different. It really was.
It was a matter of voting, not who you voted for back then.
Well, they pretty much assumed that in certain neighborhoods, you could pretty much assume that the Democratic Party was going to do just fine.
Oh yeah, because we were in the 29th ward then. It's now the 24th, but we were in the 29th back then.
I was in the 7th.
Okay, so that's South Shore area.
That's South Shore, and actually, I actually was born in the 10th, which was Verdoliak land.
Okay.
But we got out of there real quick.
All right.
Well, my parents bought a 3-plant in South Shore, and we moved because my dad's business was in South Chicago.
Okay.
So, anyway, listen, we got about a minute and a half. So, want a soapbox?
Not really. Just now, I've moved again. I've moved out of newspapers, and I'm doing freelance writing. I just did a piece on the mayor's election for the Chicago Reporter.
Nice. I did see that on Facebook.
Yeah, and I'm doing some media relations. I'm working with a group in Albany Park on an issue about out-of-school suspensions and expulsions, and how they're disproportionate in the black and brown communities. So they've already have some legislative initiative in place. So I'm doing the media relations for the black press and WVON to try to advance it and, you know, raise awareness among the black caucus in Springfield.
Very nice. No, that sounds good. What's the name of the group in Albany Park?
Albany Park Neighborhood Council.
I have heard of them. I mean, they're not that far away from here.
There's a like a subsidiary of that group called Voice, VOYCE, that advocates for education and children.
Excuse me. Drank the coffee too fast. At this point, I want to thank very much my guest, Glenn Reedus. If people would like to contact you, and
I'm on Facebook, and I'm on Twitter at Glenn Reedus.
And that's GLE, 2 N's, REEDUS.
You got it.
I want to thank you very much for joining us. I want to thank my entire technical crew, Sonny Hirsch. Stay tuned again next week. Be well, everybody. Good meeting you, Glenn.
Take care. Thanks.
Bye-bye.